Welcome to First. I'm Nichelle Poston along with Shirley Min and Mark Eichman. DelDOT officials hope one span of the 495 bridge can reopen this month. A look this week at the engineering used to do that and keep it standing and the future.
New numbers suggest there are fewer mothers breastfeeding their infants in Delaware. Is this a downward trend or just a one-year blip? A look behind the numbers.
What do architecture and jewelry design have in common? They are the passion of a Dover woman who shows us how they fit together as part of our First experience. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
Since June, construction crews have been working around the clock on the state's longest bridge that stretches nearly 1 mile. You've guessed it, I'm talking about Interstate 495 that suffered foundation damage as long as 400 feet, all from piles of dirt. In this week's First Look, we'll give you a closer view of the damage, challenges, and overall impact that a few closed exits on that stretch of highway has had on the city of Wilmington.
I will say that we clearly missed opportunities to close the bridge earlier, but I'm grateful that we got it closed in time before there was any injuries or loss of life.
From a series of hand gestures Delaware Transportation Secretary Shaylin Batt used to explain foundation damage to tons of dirt unloaded under Interstate 495, all summed up the immediate closure of a portion of the bridge. However, people still question how the dirt could cause piers below to shift.
This material out here is very soft. For about the first 100 feet, it is more like a mucky type of material, and that's what caused the problem.
The answer was also hidden below the dirt where you could see a crack in one of the pier's foundation.
What you're looking at is the existing footing. This is Pier 14 East. You can see in the far corner the crack in the footing. That was caused by the movement of the foundation. The footing actually cracked.
Above the bridge, the view was even more alarming. There you could see a huge gap between the northbound and southbound lanes.
This is up on top of the bridge, the northbound lane being on the far side, and I'm standing on the southbound side. Both bridges have rotated towards the east, so the barrier that you're looking at from the northbound lanes is raised up, and the barrier on the southbound side is dipped down. And you can see the barriers are supposed to be even with each other at this point, and at the maximum they're about 18 inches apart at the worst spot.
Ultimately, engineers and contractors faced challenges, especially when it came to hauling equipment to repair I-495.
The only thing unique about the construction here is that we're working underneath the bridge and basically trying to install temporary towers while we build new piers in place. So that's a little different.
But quick thinking worked a few project kinks out.
Normally, when you build a bridge, you start from the foundation, and then you build your substructure and then your superstructure. Here, we're basically having to hold the existing bridge while we construct the new piers.
As a result of the work being done, much of the rerouted traffic falls within Wilmington Councilwoman Hanifa Shabaz's district. And though she's pleased with the way city and state officials have come together to ease traffic congestion, she has some concerns.
We have 18-wheelers coming into our neighborhood, and so there's another thought about whether or not our streets have the capacity to maintain that extra weight and that vibrations and what it's doing to some of the older housing structures, foundations.
Health and safety are among her concerns as well.
Of course, the children are out for summer break, them being even more attentive to crossing the streets. Then also, we have a lot of asthma in that area. The east side of South Wilmington are asthma clusters. So the added exhaust, we're concerned about how that's affecting the health of the neighborhood.
Meanwhile, 4 of the piers overall were damaged due to the dirt piles. Officials made plans to replace 2, while the other 2 will be saved by crews working to rebuild stronger foundations. This time, the foundation will be much wider and surround the existing pier base with 4 corners of extra concrete, explains DelDOT.
In all 4 corners, you can see the round drilled shafts. They go 150 feet down to bedrock, What's going to happen is on top of those, there's going to be an 8-foot thick concrete foundation that is going to transmit the load from this pier out to these shafts, and the existing footing will not be counted on for anything.
All that means is that section will prevent the piers from shifting in the future. Although the bridge wasn't due for an inspection until October 2014, it passed its last inspection in October 2012. But with the emergency attention, construction officials are certain commuters will have nothing to worry about once the bridge reopens.
These piers will be as good as new, so they will be here for the duration of the life of the bridge.
There's no official date set to reopen the bridge, but we're told construction work on the bridge is ahead of schedule. In fact, the southbound lanes are expected to reopen first, following northbound lanes 2 weeks later.
So, Nichelle, lots more traffic in the city, all of us driving around Wilmington dealing with delays. Any positives to come out of all of this?
As a matter of fact, there is, Mark. Some businesses, such as Terra Grill on King Street in Wilmington and others, have posted signs that read $4.95 lunch special sold here. It's a way to draw in new customers who may pass by as a result of the traffic detours due to the bridge being out.
Sounds like some timely marketing. Who came up with that idea?
Downtown Visions actually came up with the idea. Every restaurant that advertises the $4.95 lunch special are offering something different for the special price of $4.95, so we must take advantage of it.
Sounds like a deal. Thanks, Nichelle. You can follow our coverage of the 495 bridge reopening at newsworks.org/Delaware.
Jewelry design and architecture have more in common than you might think. A Dover woman shows us how they connect in our first experience. And the I Can Connect program is proving that technology is breaking down barriers for the hearing and visually impaired.
A recent study estimates if babies born in the U.S. over 1 year were breastfed as recommended, the country could save $12 billion in health care costs alone. Despite the proven health benefits, Delaware's breastfeeding numbers have dipped. But state health leaders aren't worried, at least not yet. These new moms are gathered together for one reason: to work on their breastfeeding relationships with their babies.
In the very beginning, my daughter was not able to latch onto the breast, so she wasn't able to get the milk flowing.
Mom Stephanie Powers says for the first few days of little Tallulah's life, she just cried and cried at the breast.
You feel like you're being a bad mom because you're not able to feed your child, or that something in you is broken.
Powers sought help from lactation consultant Katie Madden here at the Birth Center in Wilmington. Madden, who's helped more than 500 women nurse their babies successfully, leads the breastfeeding support group every Friday afternoon.
So when you're pregnant, you're thinking, yeah, breastfeeding is the right thing. But when you're faced with, my baby's losing too much weight and I need to give some formula, my baby's not taking the breast, do I introduce a bottle? To be in that moment and have to make that decision is psychologically very difficult.
That stress could be one contributing factor behind Delaware's declining breastfeeding numbers. Compiled by the CDC, the state's most recent breastfeeding report card shows dips across the board compared with 2012.
That 2013 report card is a reflection of 2010 data. In other words, that survey was completed in 2010. And a lot of the progress that we've made as a state in the initiatives we've been able to put in place have taken place since then.
Delaware Division of Public Health Director Dr. Carol Rattay says new numbers are due out soon. She suspects the data will positively reflect the state's efforts. Since 2010, Rattay says the number of low-income moms in the state's Women, Infants, and Children program now choosing to breastfeed has doubled.
African American women tend to be half as likely, for example, to breastfeed compared to white and Hispanic women. And low-income women tend to be a lot less likely to breastfeed compared to women who have a higher income. And so using the WIC program is a great way to reach some of those more vulnerable populations.
The majority of the state's hospitals are also well on their way to becoming what's called baby-friendly, meaning maternity practices in the hospital are supportive of breastfeeding. Christiana is one of just 89 hospitals nationwide to receive federal dollars towards earning the certification.
It's a very daunting task to become baby-friendly certified. We've trained over 450 staff, and being the largest birthing hospital in the tri-state area with 6,500 deliveries a year, we'll take any resources we can get.
Madden is less concerned about the statewide drop from 2012 to 2013 and more concerned about moms who start breastfeeding and quit months later.
You can get off to a great start and then you encounter going back to work. That's a huge hurdle. You get off to a great start and then we start solids and we have to integrate that. We have behavioral issues. So throughout the duration of breastfeeding, there's a psychological strain, and that's something that we're really not addressing and most people aren't aware of.
The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends breastfeeding for at least 12 months. To get there, Madden says support is key.
Breastfeeding is a really nice opportunity to learn at an early stage that this isn't going to be easy, but it's going to be totally worth it.
Katie Madden is hosting the second annual Big Latch On in Newark on Saturday to kick off World Breastfeeding Week. The event brings breastfeeding women together to simultaneously latch their babies. Last year, Delaware moms accounted for 82 of the more than 14,000 latches worldwide. For information, go to Katie's website, balancedbreastfeeding.com.
The online home for First is WHYY.org/First. This show is available on Monday. Past shows are there right now. Want to know more about what the First team is working on? Subscribe to our e-newsletter and you'll be the first to know.
We are a little over 1 month away from the Delaware primary, which makes it a perfect time for State of Play. Joining us are Stephanie Hansen, former Newcastle County Council president, now with the law firm of Young, Conaway, Stargett and Taylor. Also here once again is Michael Stafford. He's an attorney and syndicated columnist whose work has been featured on MSNBC. Welcome both. Thanks for being here again.
Thanks. Thank you.
So let's jump into the Senate race and one of the Republicans running against Senator Chris Coons in the September primary. Kevin Wade making some news. He's on a fact-finding mission in Israel right now, apparently dodging some bombs, and tweeting about what he's learning there in Israel as the fight in Gaza is going on. Is this the way to win the primary, to run a campaign?
No, I don't think you win a Delaware race by traveling over to Israel on a fact-finding mission. I mean, look, Kevin was a candidate in 2012. He got a percentage of the vote that I would say the bottom line sort of Republican would get. There's 28 to 30, maybe 32% of the vote is going to go straight ticket R. That's sort of the basement floor that a Republican candidate's probably going to get in Delaware.
It was confusing as to what it is that makes him think that going over to Israel and sort of tweeting as being right in the middle of everything was going to be helpful for him. But if you look at his bio and you read through his bio to get to the very end, which, he wrote, it says that he is an amateur historian with a special focus in military histories and the politics of other countries. Aha! Now we know why he wants to go to Israel and kind of be in the mix and everything. But the idea of tweeting from the Middle East and a Senate campaign, these are non sequiturs. So I think it's more of a hobby thing that he'd like to do. If he can get to try some mileage on it for his Senate campaign, hey, great. But otherwise, it's a great adventure and it's part of his hobby.
I mean, look, this is the fundamental problem that Charlie Copeland's facing, that the Delaware GOP is facing. They have on the ticket for significant offices this year what are functionally third-party candidates. They're people who, in the past, are basically the political equivalent of the folks that used to people the Green Party ticket, the Libertarian Party, the Working Families Party. They're not major party candidates. They're not politically viable. There's really nothing they can do. I'm not even sure if a major earth-shaking scandal could make some of these folks electable. So that's the dilemma the Delaware GOP is facing.
Definitely an odd campaign, and I think it's going to be an easy one for Coons.
Yeah, I'm not. If I'm Chris, I'm not breaking a sweat. I'm thinking keep tweeting, keep posting to Facebook, keep making videos.
I think that the primary will probably be the election in this particular race, too, because even though the two Republican candidates, they're actually pretty good candidates. They're downstate candidates. That's 2/3 of the landmass, 1/3 of the voting, folks. So that they're at a tremendous disadvantage. But I think the primary in the treasurer's race is going to be a really interesting one to watch.
I mean, it is a crowded field. There's so much interest, at least among potential politicos with aspirations to higher office. It's the Markell path. It's the Markell effect. Jack did it, maybe so can I. And so when you look at this field, every single one of them has aspirations of moving on to higher office. It's not just about being treasurer. When you look at it is remarkable to me that an office that is functionally akin to a county row office, but at the state level, generates this much political interest. I mean, the main duty is signing paychecks. There's not a lot going on there. I think that plays to Chip's advantage. I mean, Chip has a powerful narrative, the outsider, the opposition. There are elements in the Democratic Party that are not pleased with the current leadership, and Chip is the standard around which they can rally. I'm not going to express dissatisfaction with some of the current leadership by voting for a Republican, but I can back Chip, and he can be sort of a needle in their eye, a thorn in their side. I think it hurts Barney. I mean, how does he, given the limited duties that the treasurer actually does, how does he distinguish himself from Chip except by saying, hey, by the way, I was in the military and my name's not Chip Flowers, and the other Democratic elected officials like me a little bit better. I'll play nicer, in the sandbox with them. For a primary, given the limited turnout, I don't think that's enough to get him by Chip.
I think Cher would really like to win. I think it's more than, for her, it's more than just about getting her name out there again. I think she truly, honestly wants to win. And she does have some real backing in Kent and Sussex. Ken Simpler, I don't know. I am kind of more of the mindset of, well, I think maybe he does want to get sort of some name recognition and see if he really sort of likes this whole political arena, and maybe he'll do this again.
See, I'm going to take a different tack. I think Ken got into the race believing that he really could win, that he would match up very well with Chip Flowers, and that he is not, because he's not from, maybe the Tea Party, very, very extremely socially conservative wing of the Republican Party, that he would have an appeal for, the Barney Democrats, for people who don't like Chip and want a treasurer who kind of stays out of the public limelight and is as focused on self-promotion as maybe Mr. Flowers is perceived to be. So I think he got into it expecting to win. I think he beats Ms. Valenzuela. I really do. I think there's a sense among Republicans that we need to win. The team needs to win one, that Ken is the best chance to do that. And I think there is some pushback against Valenzuela for throwing her hat into what some Republicans see as the most winnable race this year and muddying the waters.
All right, we'll have more primary coverage of the races here in the coming weeks. For now, thanks to our State of Players, Stephanie Hansen, Michael Stafford. Thanks so much for being here. As always, you can watch this interview at newsworks.org/Delaware. Just click the drop-down box at the top of the page.
Technology has made many of our lives easier. For those enrolled in the I Can Connect program through the University of Delaware, technology has made life better for the hearing and visually impaired. Our video partner, Content Delaware, shows us.
Technology is the bridge between not being able to do something and doing a task that's necessary for school, work, or leisure activities. It's all about independence in the end.
The I Can Connect program will purchase equipment for people who have dual sensory limitations, difficulties with both hearing and vision, technology that helps them connect with the world, either through telephone means or through the internet.
The Ward brothers, they're extremely tech savvy. So I just supplied some supplemental items for them to be able to do more, larger screens, maybe some contrast, but they had all the tools necessary within them because they knew a lot more about technology than I did, quite frankly.
I rely generally on 4 things: my iPhone, my iPad, a laptop, and a PC. I use an iPad, the iPhone, an iMac, and those three I tend to use mostly.
The technology has made it so much easier. I get to hear stories from them when I talk to them, or they text me, and they'll say, "Mom, I couldn't have done it without the technology." So it really has helped them become successful.
For job searches, I can use the iPad. I can use it to make changes to my resume. I could use my iMac for various applications, and I think it would be very helpful to me to be successful in the future as well. And the technology itself helps us to become more independent. We don't have to rely on someone else for communication, whether it's the iPhone or iPad. It makes us more comfortable and more confident in our identities.
There are eligibility requirements, some tied to income, but people would be very surprised at how much their family income can be and still qualify for the program.
The National Deafblind Equipment Distribution Program is one that's designed and funded by the FCC to help people communicate with, in the case that they are in fact visually impaired and hearing impaired. It really opens up a whole lot of opportunities for people to reconnect with people, whether it's via email, via texting, via some sort of phone call. And there's all kinds of equipment that's available to help people do that. If you are a Braille reader, you can connect things like this refreshable Braille keyboard to any sort of iDevice, whether it's an iPhone, an iPad, or an iPad mini, to be able to use the refreshable Braille in order to be able to read what somebody is being sent to you. If you can't see it and you can't hear it, makes a huge difference if you can have some other way to actually interact with whatever it is you're trying to do, whether that's texting or email or the phone for that matter.
Well, I initially became blind and my hearing loss. It kind of isolated me from just everything and everyone. And this basically, this gives me the freedom. I mean, it just gives me such, it just gives me just a freedom to just contact people and just really feel like I'm still involved in life, more or less. I'm really involved in life.
When you have access to the internet, you can do your banking independently. You can order groceries from the grocery store and have them delivered. It's a virtual link to the entire world that for someone who, by virtue of their disabilities, is limited to the home a good deal of time, it certainly means that they're not limited from connecting with their community.
I don't have to just wait around for someone to do things for me. I can read my own mail. I can check my son's grades at school. I can contact my friends about going to lunch and things like that, and not having someone else to do that for me. I like my independence. And this is basically giving me that freedom to do those things.
Online information for this program can be found at icanconnect.org. You can find Content Delaware videos at contentdelaware.org.
As an architect, Arden Bardal works on big projects, some that take years to complete. That's why she's turned her creative mind to jewelry making. She can do projects on a smaller scale and get instant gratification. In our first experience, we visit both of her worlds and learn how one influences the other.
My name is Arden Bardal, and I am an architect, and I'm an artist. And I kind of put those two things in the same basket. Both require creativity. My first pieces were very architectural pieces, very geometric. My first collection that I did is called Connections, and my Connections collection is metaphors about structural steel connections, nuts and bolts. These circles and squares, the nuts and bolts, actually have cutouts in them. They're very three-dimensional pieces, and those cutouts actually are little windows into sort of a more detail. So you're drilling down from a pattern that's on the face of the bead to detail inside the face of the bead. Each of the beads in the necklace represents an event in a life. And the beads put together then represent the path we take in life and all these events that happen. Everything I do is limited edition. There's only 5 of any one thing. Some things there's only 1. The ones are fun for me because it's kind of whatever I want to do. There's no pressure to know that I have to recreate it again. Each of my pieces is signed with my name. People come back to me all the time because they're constantly getting compliments. It just makes me feel good to just see a smile and the sparkle in somebody's eyes when they talk about my piece to me. It's really, I don't know, you get charged up. My time in the architect's office and my time in my studio, they inform each other. People can't fathom how I can work on little pieces that are 1 inch by 1 inch or 3 inches by 3 inches, and then how I can reset my brain to work on something that's 50,000 square feet. In architecture, I'm just the designer. I have no control whatsoever over the quality of the craftsmanship of what it is that is going to be constructed. In my jewelry and in my art, I get to design it, refine it, and then physically make it. My entire life, I always thought of myself as a shy person. And I realized the older that I got and the more that I did it, that I really enjoy seeing somebody get really excited about something that I've created for them. I just really love making people happy.
Arden has won several awards over the years for her jewelry designs, and you can find samples of her architecture work around Dover, including the Dover Public Library and Kent County Levy Court building, among others. Her jewelry can be found at Beyond Dimensions on Governors Avenue in Dover, the Rehoboth Art League, and on her webpage, artsurestudio.com.
And next week on First, there is an agricultural theme going. We have a report on the latest innovations coming from the poultry industry. We also take a look at the future of farming in Delaware.
Mark and I will be reporting on those stories. Before we go, we want to congratulate Ann Noble of Pennsville, New Jersey. She won the Downton Abbey DVD set in our raffle last week. We also want to congratulate Paul Pruitt and Stephanie Center as well. That is First for this week. From Mark Eichmann and Shirley Min, I'm Nichelle Polston. Thank you for watching and have a great week.
Wilmington residents can now sign up for free emergency text and email alerts directly from the Wilmington Police Department. The department can now issue alerts, which will simultaneously call landline phones, send text messages and email, and post to social media. The service is free for subscribers and registration is easy. Simply text your zip code to 888-777 or register online at nixle.com, where you can customize alert settings and choose to receive email and web alerts as well. With Nixle, you know.